Welcome everyone to our webinar today on skill-based hiring on our program Skillful that we have partnered with the Rework America Alliance, Jobs for the Future and Markle Foundation. Very happy for you all to be here, and I'm excited for you to hear about what we've been doing in partnership with Jobs for the Future and Markle and the Rework America Alliance, and how we can move forward together if you're interested. How this is going to work out today, we're going to talk a little bit about what Skillful is, how has been developed, where it's going, how it has been implemented here at Rural LISC, and then also hear a little bit from one of our partners who have already started to implement skills-based hiring, both in their own organization and also with their partners and employers. First thing, while you're signing in, just go ahead and drop in the chat your name and your organization and what your biggest challenge is with hiring. In the meantime, I will introduce to you who will be speaking today. I am, of course, Julianne Dunn. I am the Senior Program Officer for Workforce and Financial Prosperity here at Rural LISC. And I'm happy to work very closely on bringing Skillful to our Rural LISC partners. I also want to take the opportunity to introduce you to Greg Watkins from the Jobs from the Future, and Tania Hernandez from PathStone. Greg, did you want to say a few words about you? And you're going to talk a lot, but if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's just great to be here with everybody, and it's great to be on this panel with Julianne and India and Tania, and just talking about the background and the history behind the Rework America Alliance and the Skillful talent series. But as Julianne said, my name is Greg Watkins, Director of Solutions, Design, and Delivery with Jobs for the Future.
Great. And Tania, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tania Hernandez. I work for PathStone. I'm currently the Training and Employment Manager for the Riverhead office, and I overlook Suffolk and Nassau counties in New York.
Great. I also don't want to forget to introduce our newest Rural LISC member, our India Turner, who is the Assistant Program Officer for Economic Development. India, what do you want to say hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Julianne. Yeah, hello, everyone. I am new to the Rural LISC team, so I'm super excited to be here. I am India Turner, the new Assistant Program Officer, started in January and working a lot on network engagement. So you'll see me in that capacity. So it's nice to kind of be here and, learn from our partners.
And great. And last but not least, I do want to take an opportunity to introduce Dr. Patricia Stovall-Lane from PathStone. Patricia, did you have a word you wanted to say? Hello.
Hi, everyone. I am Patricia Stovall-Lane, Executive Director of Workforce Development, and really great to be here. I didn't realize, I didn't see the link, so I apologize for being late, and thank you to Tania for bringing me up today.
Well, it's great. We're all here, and it's going to be fantastic. So, as I said, we are moving right into letting Greg talk a little bit more about how Skillful was developed and how we have gotten to where we are today.
Great. Thanks, Julianne. So I'll talk a little bit about the background here, especially around the Rework America Alliance, which is an initiative that started, many years ago through the Markle Foundation, and particularly in Colorado, that expanded to the state of Indiana, and then it expanded nationally to have a national focus. But really what the Rework America Alliance is all about is moving folks without college degrees, namely folks from historically marginalized communities, people of color, women, and particularly moving folks without college degrees into good paying jobs that will lead to economic mobility and eventually intergenerational wealth. And we do this by partnering with all sectors to develop a number of tools and resources that are free and open source for two real main I guess, two main stakeholders within a workforce ecosystem. We are really focusing on the supply side, so helping career navigators work with their job seekers to help those job seekers better understand their skills, to understand that those skills have a lot of value in the marketplace, and also how to best represent those skills to employers. We also work on the demand side as well to work directly with employers or those who are engaging with employers on a regular basis to help employers understand the benefits of a skills-based talent management practice, and also to help those employers work through the change management that might have to occur to adopt skills-based practices as well. Before we move on to the next slide, I will also just note this piece, that the Rework America Alliance at the beginning of this year transitioned from the Markle Foundation to Jobs for the Future, which is a nonprofit that is really seeking to transform the United States education and workforce development systems to make them more equitable for all people. And so we found a great home at JFF, which also expands our networks and allows us to do a lot more, to go further with both our reach and our impact. So next slide. So as I mentioned, the Rework America Alliance is an initiative within JFF, and these are all of the partners that make up the alliance. And so, as I mentioned, we've got folks from the private sector, government, public sector, NGOs, et cetera, that have all helped us to either develop our tools, our trainings, or helped us push out the delivery of these tools and these resources to really help us with that dissemination piece. And so our big delivery partners are obviously Rural LISC, but we're also working with National Urban League, Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, Unidos US, and Goodwill Industries International. Next slide, please. So what I'll do for the remainder of this time is really just talk through the various resources that we've created, and then there's a number of other slides that that go into more detail about these resources that will just be able to be sent out to folks after this call. But as I mentioned, we're really focused on those two sides. So on the career navigation side, we've built out a suite of tools in coordination with all of the partners on that previous slide. But our flagship resource is the Foundational Career Coach Skills Training, which is a 4-module training that looks at skills-based career exploration, how to do that through a human-centered lens, which is module 2. How to be more equitable in working with our job seekers, and to help them understand various systemic barriers that may be arising within their job description or their job searches, and also while they're reading job descriptions. And the last module is focusing on digital literacy skills. So building those digital literacy skills for both the career navigator, but also helping the career navigator assist the job seeker in understanding various computer platforms, the role of AI in the job search, et cetera. We've also built out a tool called Skill My Resume, which is now housed with Education Design Lab. And that tool is a very easy tool for individuals to craft their own resumes based on their skill sets. And so what it does is it pulls data once the job seeker puts in a job that they've had or they've held in the past, all of the skills that are associated with that job that have been cataloged by ONET and ESCO, which is essentially the European equivalent of ONET, populate into that job description so that folks can then select, customize, add in their own personal statistics around those skills, to then craft a strong skills-based resume that can then be presented to an employer or utilized, on Indeed or, a state's platform that might be associated with an American Job Center. We've also developed the job progression tool, which was built out in coordination with McKinsey & Company. The job progression tool, what we found from the field is that it's a really useful tool for career navigators to help their job seekers map out their career pathways, to help define their goals, and then to notice where the gaps may exist. And to really determine that kind of that roadmap for skill development as they move towards their own personal end goal. I will say that the job progression tool is based on real historical data, about 4 million real job search impressions that have taken individuals from very common entry-level jobs to better paying jobs along the way. Next slide, please. And so on the demand side of things, all of the employer resources, and these can both be utilized by employers themselves, recruiters, HR representatives, chief human resources officers, anybody within that stack within a company, or they can also be utilized, and they are heavily utilized by community-based organizations, job developers, individuals who are simply engaging with employers on a regular basis. And so, as you can see, a number of resources we've also built out. The job posting generator is the analogy or the equivalent of the Skill My Resume tool, but just on the job post side. And so it pulls from ONEP, ESCO data. Any recruiter or HR representative can put in a job description title, and it'll automatically populate with all of the skills and competencies that are required for that job. And then it's really just a simple deductive process that HR representative can then X out or delete the task or the skills that they don't need. They can reorder. They can add their own text to those skills just to build it out and make it a little bit more specific for their actual operating context within that organization. We've also developed the Skillful Talent Series, which becomes really the basis for the education component. It's similar to the foundational career navigation series. This series is also on our LMS, free to the public, and it's open source. You're able to access it and all of the self-paced courses. There's 5 modules within the Skillful Talent Series that goes through the entire talent management practice, from recruitment to candidate evaluation, to onboarding, to just talent development once those individuals are within the organization and you're looking to grow that talent from a skills-based perspective. We've also developed, in coordination with a number of our partners, the Activator program, which is a 3-day, 3-hour course that provides, in conjunction with the Skillful Talent Series, a forum for individuals, a whole cohort of individuals, to come through and really learn the nuts and bolts of how to best engage an employer and how to help them, both from a convincing standpoint, but also then, how to confidently work them through some of the change management aspects, where to start in the process, where to finish in the process, for adopting skills-based practices. And that could be for just, 1 or 2 job descriptions, or the whole, a whole segment of them. Moving kind of backwards or snaking kind of through this slide, the Accelerator program was built in response to the Activator program. Accelerator is sort of that next level programming, and it provides a turnkey program for individuals who are able to work with employers at a much deeper level. So oftentimes folks in the field will We'll assign a facilitator or a number of facilitators, often in conjunction with a chamber of commerce or other community-based organizations, to build out some workshops to run employers or cohorts of employers through a more in-depth version of the activator program. And one of the, I guess, the marquee features of the accelerator program is this kind of that one-on-one support time where you're really working alongside the employer to help them understand and implement skills-based practices. Similarly, and kind of falling out from these trainings and resources are the skills-based job-specific hiring guides, and there'll be some more detail on some subsequent slides here. But we've got 11 turnkey toolkits that have been built out in partnership with industry. These are 11 of the most popular jobs, such as cybersecurity analyst, IT specialist, logistics specialist, construction manager, et cetera, that help. That's really just this kind of customizable toolkit that includes, for every job description that we've done them for, a sample job posting, a rubric for evaluation, sample interview questions, a whole onboarding plan. So it's a very easy kind of playbook that you can send and just kind of hand over to an employer as long as they're working within that sector and are interested in hiring for those positions. Similarly, the skills-based sourcing and hiring playbook, that's something that's utilized heavily in the activator program, but it can also just be something that's accessed by a job developer or an employer as well, and they can easily work through it at their own pace if that's more desirable. And then similarly with the HR software guides. Next slide, please. So the Skillful Talent Series, this is again what I've talked about, and these are we're moving into these slides that are really here for kind of for consumption after this webinar. A little bit more information is given here, but you can see the five modules within the Skillful Talent Series, again, all accessed on the LMS. One common question that we get is, can I access both the Skillful Talent Series and the coaching, foundational coaching training? And the answer is yes. Typically, we will you can have access to both, either from the dual dashboard side of things or one or the other. But again, all free, all open source. Next slide, please. And here are the 11 jobs that we've built out the hiring guides for. And as I said earlier, these were all built out with with our partners, with industry, so they do have that stamp of approval. So for example, the licensed practical nurse was built out with HCAP. We've had a number of trades association weigh in on the CNC machine operator and construction manager, things things like that. A lot of collaboration and a lot of brain power went behind these resources. Next slide, please. Which I think is just more in-depth information around around the activator program. Again, it really builds on the Skillful Talent Series and is a really fantastic program in that you go through it as a cohort with practitioners that have the same questions, the same sort of curiosity going into the program, and then end after those 3 days, 3-hour sessions with just a lot of kind of confidence and tools to keep in the toolkit for really engaging employers and helping them really adopt skills-based practices. Next slide, please, which I think is the last one. And I will turn it over to Julianne.
Thanks, Greg. A lot of information, but also a lot of great resources that are available for those who are interested, whether they're new to skills-based practicing or want to level up, whether they are the employer or the career coach. Like, there's just so much that you guys have already done, and that's pretty incredible. Moving forward, just like in the interest of time, I'm just going to move us forward into the next, which is really talking about how we have taken all of those resources that Greg has created and moved us forward. And before at Rural LISC, and before I even really get into that, I just wanted to kind of step back and give you an idea of where this Skillful fits into our larger conversation here at Rural LISC. In our focus on workforce and financial prosperity, Skillful fits in nicely with our financial opportunity centers and our rural works folks, as they are actively trying to help job seekers and help employers become first choice employers, and also be able to fill the jobs that they have open. The way that we have been looking at rural workforce at Rural LISC is a combination of multiple type of programs. So financial opportunity centers really focus on some of the financial barriers to engagement into workforce, helping folks get their credit aligned, help them budget, and as well as work on making them attractive employees, working on their employability, whether that's through resumes or job seeking or interviewing or basic skills. So Skillful is being used by our career coaches in this place to help them craft participants and job seekers craft their resumes to look at their whole job self and not just the credentials and the direct one-to-one skills, and help employers kind of think outside the box. And we also partner with our workforce agencies that are actively trying to create credentials and certificates and help participants address some of the social supports that need to be cleared so that they can complete certificates and get into the world and get jobs that reflect their experience and passions. And so career coaches and our workforce agencies are using Skillful in the very similar way as our FOCs, and working with job seekers to think outside the box about how their skills are applicable to get them into jobs that are leveling up their skills and getting them onto career paths that make sense for their life goals. And that they had previously kind of closed the door on because they thought their skills were not a match. And so using Skillful, they're able to think outside that box this way and think, oh no, actually these skills can be translated and thought outside as connecting to what your career path or opportunities in your area are available for. And then of course, digital supports or digital skilling is part of identifying the gaps and skills that folks have. So Skillful integrates really nicely into a lot of our focuses. And so when we say how our programs work together, Skillful works right into this and helps us achieve our goals to get more people employed into careers and improve their job quality. And this also includes helping us achieve our success metrics. How we measure success is an increased number of employers engaged in this, and their involvement in Skillful helps them see who there are, in fact, more people available in their communities for the jobs that they are looking for. Of course, increasing livable wage jobs and net worth and net income, and that the Skillful can help get there. In the long run, it's not like Skillful will create this, but it'll start the path to helping us measure success in rural communities. And so how this is played out for us in our relationship with Greg and Jobs for the Future and Markle Foundation. Last year, we launched a very small cohort of partners and employee partners where they participated in the training that Greg mentioned earlier. It's a 2-day Skillful training. We worked with 2 days for employers and 2 days with career coaches independently in separate cohorts because they have very different interests. And subject matter experts led these conversations to kind of rethink how they approach whether it's the hiring practice or the career coaching practice. And then after they completed those 2 days, they went online and completed either the Skillful Talent Series or the Career Coaches Talent Series and receive certificates. Employers are actually able that complete that Skillful are actually eligible for professional development credit with the Society of Human Resource Society of human resource management association. And so that also was a nice benefit for our employers who got involved. And this year we are, still working with the cohort to help them with implementation and troubleshoot some of the issues that they might have with this level setting that is going on in their community and with their practices, whether it is, obstacles within their organization to get people on board and become advocates on this, shift of mindset about who our job seekers are and what they can be eligible for, or it is in getting working with employers and helping them get on board and seeing their job applicants that have gone through a skills-based program, that they are in fact a good fit, and even part of this is also dealing with our cohort's own personal biases and realizing where they are, in fact, they are holding back as well, which has been part of some very interesting conversations around that as well. And we actually have several of those conversations over the past 4 months, but moving into we have a few more in the next 2 months. We also are holding surveys to really truly try to understand what obstacles our partners are facing as they try to implement skillful and skills-based hiring, and how we can better improve and create more resources. And as we're transitioning into this and making this more tailored for our rural LISC partners, we're actually, like Greg mentioned, Skillful is open, and we are trying to get more and more of our partners engaged and involved and complete the certificate. And so we can even have a larger conversation of where skillful and skills-based hiring fits into our partners' work. So that's where rural LISC is. Like it is also like a shift for us as well to open the door as well for a workforce to get more folks that have been traditionally not been included because of where their past or their backgrounds have, and get them more access to better paying jobs, and still valuing the work that has been done before. This is just another tool in people's toolboxes. So that's where we are with Rural Works and Rural LISC and FOCs, and where we are moving forward. Greg and I are still working on more opportunities, as our partners have mentioned things that they'd like to see in our listening sessions, including additional activator trainings, additional on-site in our rural communities, like having sessions with employers directly, creating resources to help show the data that has been collected over the years, the benefit of skills-based hiring. And we are still growing that and still trying to get more folks to learn and see if they can implement that in their program. So you will hear more and more of this as we go, because Greg and I have 1,000 ideas and we can probably do maybe 10. But always interested to hear how you think you can incorporate skills-based hiring, or if there's challenges that we have not addressed. I'm always interested in hearing about that. But in the interest of time, I thought it might be very interesting to share, before we really hear from Tania and Patricia from PathStone, just to show you a comparison of 2 different types of resumes. And this is pulled directly from the online training that Tracy Everett provided as part of our 2023 virtual training, and Greg has actually just shared recently is something that we are able to teach the train. We have a possibility of a teach the trainer opportunity, but let me give you an example. So this is a very classic job description. I can't take credit for this. I just really want to shout out Tracy Everett and Greg for creating this. But it's we've all seen these job descriptions. There's a first thing off the top of the bat is a reference to a credential with a BA or a BS, some minimal experience, like very hard on actual credentialing and experience directly to specific platforms. And we've seen 100 of these. And so a lot of people will look at this and not see themselves in this and immediately move past this job description. So job seekers, they might say, oh, I don't have a bachelor, so I'm not eligible for this job. Or I've never worked with Workday, so I'm out. Like, even though they might, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. But so this is a traditional job posting. And then in a more skills-based way, it is leaning more towards competencies, like transferable experiences and skills that can be truly getting to the heart of a job, and not just like for classic. And so as you can see, it's really focused on people's experiences with interviewing and interpersonal and writing. And it's almost, you wouldn't even recognize that this is the same job description. It's the same job that the previous one had, because it really gets to the heart of what someone's going to be doing, and being able to see, oh, well, I might not have worked with Workday, but I have worked with another platform to hire people, or I have, I don't have a BA in it, but I have interviewed dozens and dozens of people for a job, or have written effectively in many different ways. And so this is like to the heart of this kind of job description allows people to see themselves in these jobs immediately, and connecting with, oh, well, I know how to do that. I can definitely do this, and learn how to do it specifically towards the employer's skills. And then we still reference, there's even if you do have a degree, we still love degrees. We just, opening the door to more folks. But even in these, if someone who has a degree or certificate specifically tailored to the job, they should still see themselves in this. So it's a much more inclusive way of inviting people to apply for a job and get a better sense of what someone's day-to-day life would be, which would increase the number of the increased retention, because people really truly have a better sense of what this job is entailing. And I want to do one last thing. It's kind of like another, like, in summary, here's two comparisons. The pedigree-based job posting is the more classic, traditional. We've seen hundreds. If you ever look for a job, you've seen some version of this, where they lead with the degree or credential that you need, and some basic, we can have a whole conversation about how much years of experience people need to have and how much do they actually need to have. But there's always, they always lead with that in a traditional job posting. And there's, in the job, there's some unintentional bias being let that people who are looking for jobs read, but you as a job poster might not necessarily realize, because that's the unintentional part that you're putting out there. In comparison to skills-based job posting, which still recognizes someone might have done years of education and work, but also allows to open the door for those who have just transferable skills. And then also reduces some of the bias in the language that we use to open the more diverse job pool, and also opening the door for people who you might not traditionally think of, but might be a better selection. So with that in mind, and just keeping an eye on the time, I do want to give the opportunity, like everything that Greg and I have said, Tania and Patricia have actually lived and experienced for the past a year or so, and have some great examples of what they have done and what they've struggled with, including within their organization and outside the organization. So I am going to move the spotlight over to Tania.
Thank you, Julianne, for the opportunity. Well, basically for us, this is a tool for success, because at least for myself, there is a before and an after. In the way, how do I conduct the initial interviews for my clients, and in the way that we use, and then that we are writing resumes. So what I learned from this series, it was that we have to empower our clients to choose what matters to them, right? So in that aspect, I do want to share 3 essential keys that we teach our clients. Is that 1, we have to pay attention to the emotions that we are conducting that interview, because we don't want to be judgmental. We want to be open in the emotions that they have. Second, we have to move from judgment to curiosity, right? Move away from that place. And 3, empower our clients, as I said in the beginning. So for example, in the resume part, what I try to do is I read the job descriptions where I'm going to refer my clients, and to see the key words that they are using. And then I talk to our clients and say, okay, so is this something that you did in the past? how we can convert that skill that you did, for example, in our case, in the agricultural field, how we can convert that skill in what that employers need. So it has been successful for us. Most of our clients receive callback for interviews because of that, what we learned in this series. Also, in my experience here as a manager at the office, when we are looking for outreach coordinators, we are implementing that they have a background in agriculture, but also that they know how to manage, for example, an app to do a flyer, that they can go online and, talk with people, provide orientation. We are focusing in other aspects more in a way that we want to be proactive in what we learn and to hire from the skills. And also, for example, one thing that I learned in the training was to always believe in the clients, remain curious, stay connected, and let the client decide their own journey. And of course, we assist them with that journey. So we do have an exciting success story from one of my coworkers, and I would like that Miss Patricia Stovall share that with everyone.
Wait, okay. Thank you. I'll mute myself. I appreciate that, and I really did get a lot from the trainings that we did. Greg, good to see you. Julianne, always, and India. I think I've seen you before. Are you brand new, or maybe just the name? Okay.
I started in January, so I'm still pretty new.
Oh, okay. Well, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Initially, when I heard about it and I started to read the information on the different trainings that were going to be available, I'm always huge on training my staff because we work with individuals, and our purpose is to help people see and change their lives. So when we had the opportunity to look into employer engagement, part of that is getting the individual. So we do outreach and recruitment. We help them remove any kind of barriers that they might have, do objective assessments to get them, find out academically where they are, and move them into a type of training that they would be able to come out with a credential or a license and then get them into employment. But we don't just say go and fill out an application, get a job. We actually do job development ourselves. So I thought, employer engagement, we're going to learn some new skills, and that would be training for my staff. Well, in the midst of going through some of the workshops, I realized that we needed it ourselves because our practices were somewhat archaic, and our job descriptions were biased. I believe, and I also, no, not I believe, our job descriptions are biased because they're always looking for credentials, education, and all those kinds of things that an entry-level person may or may not have. But coming from where we are for the pay scales as a nonprofit that we offer, we're not getting those individuals that want to come and work here. And so I needed to look a different way. So one day we were on one of the workshops, and in the module, they separated us into work groups. And I happened to be in the work group with Tania, and also I think it was Tania and Diana. And they had us in the job description was calling for a marketing person. Now I'm in the process of hiring because we were ending pandemic. But I mean, we had people leave. We're still in that same process, but we had people leave. They didn't want to work with other people. So in the process of me getting all these applications, from what our job description says, nobody seemed to be qualified. So lo and behold, we're in this module, and they one of the applications was for an individual that was young. He didn't have any marketing skills. He hadn't worked at all. And Diana and Tania noticed that he had so many followers on his, I don't know if it was Instagram, but social media page. And so I said, yes, but that doesn't point to experience or anything. So, but we're actually in this training. So I'm thinking outside the box. That doesn't point to any experience. So no, he wouldn't be a good candidate for this job. And then they both chimed in and said to me, well, if he has that many followers, people are actually looking at his page. That's marketing. And so I started to think about it, and I called someone back for an interview, because when she first interviewed with us, she said, oh, I've never done anything like that before. I work at, I think it was Rite Aid, and, you know, I'm an evening manager, you know, and I just stock the store and things like that. And here we are doing all these other different things. And then she said, but I also work for a company, and we put on plays, and I work backstage. And so I'm really working with the individuals to get them prepared to do the play. And so after sitting through the workshop, and I really literally thinking about all of the attributes that she does come with, not how they line up with what we put as a description for the job, they overlapped. So I called her back for an interview, and she is still, and it's been almost 3 years, our training and employment manager. Her name is Mariah Burris, and she works in our Lockport area. So she came in, like, with us being limited staff, we hired her as a manager, and also a placement career service developer, a job developer under her. And they've been doing very well. As a matter of fact, I had to be in another office, which was down, gave them their van and everything, told them what we were supposed to be doing. The next thing, they went out to do outreach. They came back with all these cabbages. I was like, wait, where'd you get those from? They said, the people were giving it to them. We were telling them about our program, marketing. And they gave us these cabbages. What are we supposed to do? I was like, I guess you got to take them home. but it's just a different career field. And instead of us looking at it with the lens of, here's this professional position that you have, and you're working with individuals, we had to translate it, and it's not in our job description because the job description had to go before the board. But what I did get human resources to allow me to do is stop looking for all of those degrees, because it says 3 years, a bachelor's degree or 3 years experience. Stop looking for that and look for people that have talent and that have done jobs that might be comparable. So if you're out there and you're doing farm work, that, I mean, you're communicating with people, you're working with your hands, manufacturing could be the field. And so we started to look at things differently, and I really appreciate that. And so I ended up, instead of us looking for the job development, for looking out, because all of my supervisors were hiring, we started looking within and really utilize these tools and shared with one another. We have a regional conference call every first Monday of the month. And on our regional conference call, that we started doing train the trainer, having them train all the rest of the staff. I'm responsible for New York, Vermont, and Ohio. So the seeds went very far.
I love that story so much, because there is probably no better way to build believers than to have their coworker hired because of this. And I have met her and she's lovely. And so I'm sure she's an accidental advocate because they're like, oh, we got her because of this. Like, we should all do this. I love this story so much. I think, tell it for the rest of time, but it's fantastic. And we only have a few short minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording before we get to Q&A. But I really want to thank Dr. Patricia Stovall-Lane and Tania Hernandez from PathStone Corporation and Greg Watkins from Jobs from the Future, and of course our very own India Turner, for taking the time today to talk about Skillful. If we have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat, but I am going to go and stop the recording, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.